Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking, the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to joining this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and the many that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We appreciate the time you're granting us, and we like to move quickly through these calls. Bottom line, the information for you. We know you're busy and you have other things to do. We have a standard format here. We spend just a few minutes talking about the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for these other currencies. We spend a few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's just go ahead and get started, and let's start with what's going on currently in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of these pre-valued currencies. We're not advocating either the purchase or sale of these currencies, but we're merely sharing with you information as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, the information that we think is relevant. The first thing I'd like to touch on is a window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. And as I alluded to last week, and I will reiterate again this week, it looks like the reinstitution is going to be pushed back for a number of reasons. I'm looking at best case scenario, 60 to 90 days out. Worst case scenario, pushed all the way to January of 2020. Now, there are a number of reasons for this. First, and indirectly, I'd like to talk about the political situation in the United States. We're at a very unusual place politically in this country. There is a preoccupation with very dramatic differences as to our immigration laws and what's going on our southern border. We also had the recent release of the Mueller report, which again has a nation divided in a number of ways. And being 2019, we are looking at a 2020 election, which is going to be pivotal. And so people are dug in and they're just preoccupied with what's going on domestically. Now, one thing that did occur in Iraq, and of course it involves directly Iran, is the fact that the Trump administration has officially declared the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization. Now, this ups the ante with the United States and Iran, but it also means that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard in Iraq is going to be treated a little differently, and it's telling Iraq that they're going to need really to expel these people from their country. One of the problems the United States has is they do not feel that there has been a sufficient firewall between Iraq and Iran, and this declaration is making that crystal clear. Now, actually, what's going on in country, of course, the 2019 budget was passed, and just the last week or two there has been supplemental language added to the budget. But the important component and the reason, in our opinion, that the reinstitution will be delayed is that the CBI, in conjunction with the government, has gone ahead and released the payout for the first quarter of salaries, particularly to the Kurdistan regional government that's been complaining almost daily about that. And it was paid out at the 1180 rate, i.e. 1/8 of a penny. Now, the problem with that is that once they have released funds from the budget at that rate, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to recalculate and recalibrate in order to reinstitute for the budget. Now, this can be done. It's a difficult procedure. Assuming that they want to go ahead and do this, this pushes it out 60 or 90 days. If they decide today that they want to reinstitute as soon as possible, the recalculation of the budget, again, in my view, is going to take at least 60 to 90 days because now we have to go through the whole gauntlet and everyone has to sign off. So what could happen, not what will happen, but what could happen is this could get pushed all the way to January of 2020 when the budget comes out then, and at that time it would be easier for them to just go with the reinstituted rate. However, there is a lot of pressure for them to reinstitute this year, so we're just going to have to see how this tug of war plays out. This changes nothing from the standpoint of Trusts Unlimited. Once an individual understands what they need to do and why they need to do it pre-RV, and since we don't really know exactly when this can occur, for obvious reasons, people need to get their affairs in order. So, in conclusion, I'll just state it again. It looks as though we're looking at the reinstitution being pushed out at least another 60 to 90 days, and worst case scenario, January of 2020. I know that's disappointing for people. It's certainly disappointing for me. I mean, I did the math in my head right away. I thought, well, that's 40 more weekly calls. But the situation is what it is. I'm still a strong believer that at some point this will occur, and those of us that hold these currencies that have been patient will be very richly rewarded. Now that we have a little bit more time to get our affairs in order, those of you listening to the call and have not done so and may not understand what that involves, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your pre-valued currencies on paper to that trust. Post-RV involves all the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is the establishment of your pre-RV package of asset protection trusts. Very simply, a trust is a legal instrument one can establish to hold, to manage, and to protect assets. There are a number of entities out there that can provide at least some asset protection, but in our view, the best vehicle available domestically would be a package of irrevocable trusts such as ours. Now, some individuals have established LLCs and sub-S corporations. Those are business entities, and they do provide some limited liability, and they do provide some segregation from personal assets and business assets. But courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations that have been held by one family or a closely held group in majority, i.e. 51% of the stock or more, can be pierced for civil litigation. So these are not the vehicles, in our opinion, that would be appropriate for a transaction such as this, a substantial financial transaction. Now, there are also revocable trusts, which are statutory trusts regulated by state to state and have some variance. Revocable trusts do provide protection to the extent that they exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and if properly structured, can double the exemption from the federal estate tax. But revocable trusts provide no asset protection and no privacy. There are individuals that are purveyors of irrevocable trusts, but they are single trusts, not packages of trusts. There are individuals that are selling something called the pure trust, the constitutional trust, non-grantor trusts. Those three trusts I just mentioned have all been flagged by the IRS, and you certainly do not want to utilize a vehicle that the IRS frowns upon for this transaction. Those trusts are not packages of trusts, meaning all of your assets would be in one single trust or one legal entity. And that's a vulnerability, because what that would mean is if any asset of yours was involved in a civil proceeding, the owner of that asset also owns all of your other assets, which places all of your net worth at risk in a civil litigation. So that, in our view, would not be appropriate. That leaves our trust package. Our package is designed in such a way as to ensure that each individual asset is in a separate sub-trust. And I will explain in a little bit more detail how that provides the privacy and asset protection you're going to need. Now, your trust package must be established prior to the revaluation of these currencies for a number of reasons. First, by establishing this pre-RV Asset Protection Trust package and assigning your currencies on paper to that package, you will protect your privacy and your anonymity. Because with an irrevocable trust, your assets remain private. They're sealed. The general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package and assigning your currencies to that package, you will successfully avoid IRS scrutiny. If you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit will be time-consuming. It will be frustrating. The timing couldn't be worse. And frankly, such an audit would probably cost you more than our Asset Protection Trust package. On the other hand, if your trust is in force and your currencies have been assigned to that trust, you have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, that's important for a couple of reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this revaluation occurs within your trust. But even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do that intrusive and expensive 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV Asset Protection Trust package is if you plan on gifting currency to family and friends in certain situations. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV, but in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies prior to their revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves or giving them the lump sum after you've conducted the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to gift this post-US dollar windfall to these individuals, then you can gift to them through a special gift subtrust that we have created specifically for that purpose. By gifting through this subtrust, not only will their U.S. dollars be protected along with yours, but the language of this subtrust will allow you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can gift the exact dollar amount that you had in mind irrespective of the exchange rate. And again, because these dollars are in your gift subtrust as part of your package, you will directly be able to manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies the day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs in a state of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And in that situation, your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for you to transfer that estate to your heirs. Under current law, approximately 10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Scenario number 2, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs in a state of $25 million, but this time not outside of our trust, but housed inside our asset protection trust. As a result, there will be no probate, there will be no public disclosure of your estate, your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The 5th reason you'd want to establish this trust package, pre-RV, is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or for the value of property at the time you transferred it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies to our trust package. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very good case and very deep pockets, because it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to prevail in a civil suit if your assets are in this irrevocable trust package. Second, and most importantly, pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, even if a plaintiff were to prevail in a civil proceeding, the only thing they would ever get by way of a financial award would be the pre-RV value of $5,000, the value of the property at the time you transferred it to the trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million. There will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection has been accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets, and this is how it would work. Again, the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. And now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by our master trust. Now, why is this critical from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't own anything. So it would be counterproductive for the plaintiff to sue you. The plaintiff would then be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you're merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. all of your other assets are safely protected in the other sub-trusts. Now, why are those assets protected? They're protected because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal entities, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity. So this trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of asset protection trusts prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in all the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of these currencies. I'll just make mention of one here. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to instruct and assist you on the funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our clients have already expressed desires to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is by transferring funds directly from your asset protection trust to those newly established entities. We'll also have our tax specialists there. They will show you a variety of ways that you can legitimately reduce taxes on the income that you will generate from the net proceeds from the revaluation. We'll also have our offshore specialists there. They'll assist you with the information you need to decide whether or not you wish to establish offshore entities. And if you establish offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition your financial assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are substantially lost in 3 to 5 years due to mismanagement, inexperience, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the government, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want to get a substantial amount of your net worth out of the bank and at work in other markets. We also know that the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-based Basel III compliant currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, which is another reason to get your money out of financial assets and into some tangibles as well. Now, our trust product is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and then hold financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one gift sub-trust, which at any time can be converted to a standard sub-trust if you have no need to manage gifted currencies, and 8 additional standard sub-trusts, which will hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. This was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with Denarian some years ago, we knew that that price tag was going to be unaffordable for many. So by back-end loading the funding of this trust package post-RV, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. So with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for protecting their assets by establishing their trust pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be actually less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in force and in place prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies for the reasons that I've stated here today. I hope this information has been informative and helpful. We're going to go to a Q&A in just a minute. And when we do, if the things that I've discussed here are of interest, I invite you to get our initial package. It has a lot of information about us, about the revaluation, about trusts in general. Included in the package is everything you need if you should decide to proceed and establish a trust, but you're under, again, no obligation by getting the package. In addition, if you have any questions as the result of reviewing the package, you can contact us either by phone or email. We'll be happy to answer your questions. There will be no consultation fee. Now, we will go to the Q&A in just a second, but for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to assist you, or at the very least getting our initial package. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area. Now, Bob and I have been working together for a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. And it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, it's just the reverse. Under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death, and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are, of course, investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. So again, thanks for listening to the call. We're going to go to the Q&A here. I hope that you have a pen and paper ready if you'd like to contact us and get our initial package. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We don't take service calls. Clients can contact us if they have service questions. And for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen to participate in the Q&A. So I'm going to open the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give our newer callers our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD Calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon with the exception of the last two digits. Rather than dialing 40, you'll dial 39 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically, pre-RV, but after the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar and the revaluation, emails may go out as often as daily, and I'm sure you're going to want those. So let's go and see if we have any questions here today. We have a question here from, this is area code 312. That's got to be less. 312, go ahead.
Yes, indeed, Jim. Hi, good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
That intel had to be the best I heard all year. All year, that had to be the best.
Well, I guess I topped myself there. I'm glad to hear that. I'm trying out here. I'm trying.
I hear you, man. So I'm just joking, everyone. So the fact that Iraq is still getting these contracts and things approved and paid for, the payments for the employees, I think it's supposed to go up because they stopped it at March when they paid them on the old rate. But in April, they didn't pay them yet because they claimed they had to do some recalculation.
That's why I said there's a possibility that we could see the reval in the next 60 to 90 days, because the people that want to get it done are going to say, we don't care if you have to walk through hot coals, get it done, because we do not want to wait till January 2020. And as I said, the first thing I did was the math on how many more weekly calls I have to do if they push this to January 2020. So believe me, I'm right with you, brother. I want this over like yesterday.
Well, if you need to take a vacation, I know TT would be glad to fill in for you.
Yeah. Well, the attorneys might have a problem with that. They even get upset. I said, guys, I can't do the call in 2 weeks. Why? I'm in the hospital. So, like,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, right. What am I going to have the nurse hold up the computer?
Yeah, why not?
No, they're not that bad. I'm just kidding with you. But we'll stay on top of it. This is obviously, it's disappointing, because we get right to the brink, and it's like you're juggling and you have one extra ball that you got in the air, and it's just a struggle. When you hold one thing up, something else goes. But it is what it is. But there is a distinct possibility that it could happen in the next 60 to 90 days. And when people contact us, I say, look, it doesn't matter whether it happens in a week or a year. Once you understand why you need to get the currencies out of direct title and in your trust, you shouldn't waste a day, because if once the horse is out of the barn, if you haven't done it, it's too late. You can never undo the damage, the difference between having it locked up in an irrevocable trust and having it owned in your direct title. It affects you in every possible way. I'll just give you one quick example. Under the code right now, the way the IRS code reads right now, if your currencies are outside of a trust, they'll be treated as cap gain. If they're in a trust pursuant to Section 643B of the code, it's all tax deferred. Now, that doesn't mean that the IRS isn't going to try to change the reg, but imagine the difference between having to pay 50% state and federal taxes versus having all of that money in the trust and investing all of it and only paying taxes on the dividends and interest. So that's why You need to get the currencies out of title and into a trust because you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Yeah, and I have a trust, and I believe we should have one. But also, we're dealing with the U.S., the government. And these people change the rules whenever they see fit.
Well, it's not quite that. They can do it, but we can only make decisions today based on the information at hand. And the information at hand is that we will probably enjoy tax deferral within the trust, again, pursuant to 643B of the IRS code. So, I mean, if the IRS chooses to rescind that, there's nothing we can do about it. Then it defaults to cap gain. But if the IRS leaves it in place, we have tax deferral, in addition to privacy and asset protection aspects.
Right. One last thing. I saw an article regarding Iran providing 2 years of electricity, or maybe 3 years of electricity, to get Iraq's power stuff back up to par and online all over.
Well, that's just a ruse for them to retain control, because the U.S. sanctions have really crippled them, and Iraq is virtually their only customer. So, that's just desperation.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for taking my call. Thanks for coming on today.
Iran is not a friend of Iraq. Iran is not a friend of Iraq. Iran is the big brother that takes advantage of the little brother.
Well.
So it's unfortunate, and and of course Iran is one of the mullahs of Iran is one of the reasons why the corrupt auctions continue, and why there were corrupt officials in there. They were Shias, and the more radical Shias have an allegiance to Iran. So Iran's a problem. They just are, and hopefully they can overcome all of that.
And then I think here in the U.S., I think they're pumping people to tell more people so they can buy more currency. I think there's some greed going on here just within the country, because they know we got a lot of new people. It's everywhere.
I'm probably going to be buying some more myself.
Wow.
The more you own, the less the reval has to be for you to make money. So you make it in volume. I mean, frankly, it comes back at 10 cents. I'm retired, so what the heck?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks again. Okay. Have a great week.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area code 989. That's 989. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. It's Laverne.
Yes, how are you?
Fine today, thank you. My question is about the call-in number. Has the number changed or something? I was somewhat confused.
Yes, it has, because I tried to call in myself, and they said they declined it, and they gave me the new number.
Right.
Which is, you're in the call. You have the number.
Right, I do have.
Yeah,
okay.
I want to make sure I wrote it. To be honest with you, I want to make sure I wrote it down here. Give me a second. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
But I didn't know about it either till I tried to call in. So, there's a new number. I don't know what's going on, but this happens periodically.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, our next caller is area code 321. That's 321. That's got to be Ron. How you doing, Ron?
She took my thunder.
Sorry about that.
I was going to ask you why you didn't advertise the change, but apparently they didn't let you know that it was changed.
They didn't. Unfortunately, for a couple of times I've tried to get into the call and couldn't because of some sort of a change. One time they changed our access code, not the access code for you to listen, but the access code for me as the sponsor. And so they kept declining it, and I'm looking at my paper going, I'm dyslexic, but I know that's the right number. But so it happens from time to time. It's unfortunate, but everyone seemed to have gotten on anyway.
Yeah, they were kind enough to give us a new number. Now, does that also include a new number for the callback? Well,
that's a good question, and I said I may have misspoken on this call. I'm going to have to check the. I would expect. Let me see what this number is again. You might be absolutely right about that. I did not have time to contact them and see what the callback number was. So that information, for anyone that's still on the line, the callback number I gave you might be incorrect because I kind of forgot the fact that I had to call in on a new number. So what we'll do, I'm going to find out what the callback number is, and I'm going to try to get that on our website today so that people, if they go to the website, they can see the correct callback number. But I'm glad you brought that up because that would have bypassed me. So I'll get on that right after this call and see what I can do.
All right. Do you know anything about the fact that the Congress is in the process of abolishing the IRS and going to a straight sales
consumption tax? Yeah. It's not going to happen unless the Republicans regain the House. It's not going to make it. It's not going to make it. The House is the Democrats have the House. They have absolutely no desire for a consumption tax because they want to. You can't socially engineer with a consumption tax. So I bet the farm that it hadn't got a prayer unless the Republicans get the House and the Senate. I mean, whatever I'm not saying I'm pro or against it. I'm just saying as a political reality, the Democrats oppose a consumption tax. And it's funny, too, because if you look at the states that are in the red are the blue states with the highest taxes. The states that are in the black, like Tennessee where I live, don't even have an income tax. They have a sales tax. And the beauty of the sales tax is it eliminates the bureaucracy of a collection agency, and the money is collected at the point of sale. If I go in there and I buy something in Tennessee, depending upon what it is, I pay anywhere from 6 to 9% sales tax. That money's been paid. It's done. I don't even see it. I don't even feel it. There's no collection agency, and the government can function because they have a pretty good handle on what the consumptive rate is in the state. So, it's a good idea, which is why it's DOA, unfortunately, in the federal government for now. But they're $22 trillion in deficit, so you'd think they'd, figure this stuff out. But like I said, the blue states that have high income taxes also send representatives to the House based on your population, which are of the same ilk. It's also funny that California and New York have the greatest flight, businesses and successful people leaving the state, and they go primarily to places like Florida and Texas. And then what do? They petition to have the same tax environment they just left. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah. The trouble with the consumption tax is the welfare folks that don't pay taxes will now have to pay their fair share. They can't get out of it.
Well, they'll pay very little. As a matter of fact, I saw a survey that said that the top 1% wage earners and highest net worth pay by 37% of the goods and services, 1/3. So if they're buying 1/3 of the goods and services, you can extrapolate, meaning they'll pay 1/3 of the consumption tax. They're also talking about the federal consumption tax being at 22%. That's pretty high. So there's some things they have to tweak. But as I said, if you look at the states that do not have an income tax but a consumption tax, they're in the black. So results, the results are there for anyone to see if they just don't want to be, stubborn about it and just look at the results. But again, the bottom line is income tax is a good way to socially engineer. They can change your behavior by changing the tax code, whereas a consumption tax leaves the decision solely up to the consumer as to whether or not he wants to purchase an item. But there's the trial lawyers union, the estate planning, tax lawyers union, the accountants. They're out of work if we go to a consumption tax. So that's the problem.
All right, I'll sign off.
I won't beat it anymore. Thanks for your call. Take care, Ron.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. We have a return call here. That's 989. Go ahead.
Jim, it's Laverne again. I just wanted to say to Ron that, the process for calling back in is the same as the other. They just dropped it back one digit.
Dropped it back one digit. Okay, so let me
like 4 instead of 4, we 39. Because I tried it before I called you from the beginning.
So okay, can you give it to me, the callback number?
So it's going to be 605.
All right.
313.
Okay.
5163.
5163. Okay, they're just drop a one digit. I see. Great, excellent. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that, Laverne.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Well, Laverne was our last caller. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this week's call. I know it was somewhat disappointing, but it is what it is, and this is going to get done because it has to get done. We'll just have to be a little bit more patient. Maybe we could get lucky in the next 60 to 90 days it could pop. I'd love to see that happen. Our next call is scheduled for next week. Of course, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we will certainly schedule an emergency. We'll get an email and schedule an emergency conference call. Those of you that have submitted trusts and other questions over the last few days, those that I have not as yet contacted, I will be spending the rest of the week contacting you. So don't worry, just be a little more patient. I'll be back on the phone within the hour and taking care of all of that. Again, if the information is of interest to you and compelling in any way, I hope you'll contact us to get our initial package. It's a no-obligation package. It has a lot of valuable information. It has everything you need if you should decide that you wish to proceed with a trust. Our next call, again, will be next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks again, and have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.